Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Listen in as we journey to some of Italy's most beautiful places in the company of those who know them best, the families who grow grapes and make fabulous wines. Through their stories, we will learn not just about their wines, but also about their ways of life, the local and regional foods and specialities that pair naturally with their wines, and the most beautiful places to visit. We have a wonderful journey of discovery ahead of us, and I hope you will join me. Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon. Today we are traveling to Le Marche to meet a good friend of mine, Antonio Tombolini, who is rightly considered one of Italy's visionary pioneers of the internet. In the late 1990s, Antonio was able to find a way to bring together two great passions: his technical and technological expertise about the then still just emerging internet, and his deep love and knowledge about local and regional food and wine through the creation of an exciting startup, Esperia.com. It's a really fascinating story, one I remember well being part of as a customer, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about how this came about. Buongiorno, Antonio. How are you today?
Good morning, Mark. Good morning, everybody. I'm very good. Very good today. A really nice day, sunny day, so quite happy.
Well, it's not a very nice day here. We're in the middle of a giant storm, so I'm imagining the sunshine in your beautiful region. Tell us about where you are. I'd like to give our listeners a sense of place. So tell us a little bit about your home.
Well, so my currently at my desk in Castelfidardo, which is a small village in Le Marche region, very famous for inventing the fisarmonica, the accordion. At my desk, in my busy in my new venture in the coffee market, but maybe something later on that. We are, let's say, 5 or 6 kilometers from the sea, wonderful beach, and the region, and I think one cannot exaggerate how good it is to live here, to be honest.
Yes, Le Marche is one of my favorite regions, and I love that mix of the beautiful rolling hills where you are leading up to the mountains, and then the proximity of the sea. It seems to be a region that has a bit of everything, and certainly in terms of food and wine, wonderful foods and wonderful wine.
Also, which is very important too.
Yes. Now, I'm going to turn back the clock and remind our listeners, some of whom may not even have been born yet, that in the late 1990s, the internet was incredibly young and exciting and new and slow. We had to connect with things like dial-up modems, and e-commerce was incredibly new. People didn't even all have mobile phones yet, if one can imagine such a world. And it was at that time that you began to develop some exciting ideas. Tell us a little bit about how these passions came about.
Well, so about food and wine, I would say it's completely to my family, because I used to stay with my mother hours and hours in our kitchen, looking to my mother cooking everything, and testing and learning since I was, I do not know, maybe 5 years old or so. And then regarding the internet, it's a little bit less fascinating, if you want, because when I started to think about launching a website selling food and wine through the internet, it was because I was short on money, and it was the only way I discovered to open up my food and wine business. And so, to be honest, this has been the real reason at the beginning. Of course, I was already in the internet because another passion of mine, which I used to play chess, and I love to play chess. And thanks to the internet, I discovered a way to play chess in my lunch time while working as a manager in a local company in a completely different industry. And so when I discovered the internet, I realized that it was another place, a completely new world where you could be able to transform the concept of space and time we were accustomed with at the age. And so at lunchtime, I was able to play chess with some guy from the Australia or the United Kingdom or whatever. And this is my initial story with the internet, and then it became also my business.
Well, that's really fascinating that out of a completely separate passion, your passion for chess, you gained a sense of, I guess, the power of community, of being able to connect with people all around the world, because that was also part of the essence of what you were doing with Esperia.com. Tell us about Esperia.com, what it was, how you developed it, and how it grew, because it was such an exciting concept at the time.
Yes. So let's say this way, I was continuously traveling for business in different places and regions in Italy, and I was always looking for local products, and apart from my job, I was spending my dinner time and some spare time from the work time in looking for local producers of food and wine. And then with the internet, I started to think on the possibility to make my friends part of my experience. So the real interesting part of the first steps I did, it was before Esperia with the news group. The news groups were the first form of community in the internet. And I was part of a news group named it.hobby.cucina. Okay. So in this new news group, we were, let's say, a bunch of friends, like 100 maximum, and I started to tell the stories of my discoveries, and they pushed me step by step in doing something to share with them not just the stories but the real products with them. So I started to distribute samples and to collect orders in a very naive way, until also with this group of friends continuously pushing me to the decision of launching it as a proper business. And this is the way Esperia was born.
Well, that's really fascinating. It reminds me almost of the story of Pellegrino Artusi, who has also, for business, traveled all around Italy. Through his passion and his love of food, eventually wrote this great book, Science in the Kitchen and the Art of Eating Well. And it was through your love of eating whenever you were traveling that eventually led to sharing these products with your friends. And it's interesting, the news groups, because many people will not have heard of news groups, but this was before the World Wide Web, with a visual interface through Netscape and all of that, had yet even become a mainstream. So it was a very, very different way of communicating. Really, would have been text only. Is that right?
Is it? Is it? And this is also an interesting part. I always thought that you can live limitations in two ways. The ordinary way is that you hate limitations, and with reason, of course. But I tend to see at limitations as a spark for creativity. So when you are forced to use just text, I think it's good training to tell stories and to make people feeling what you are saying, a feeling for the food you are trying to describe and everything. So it has been a real good experience.
Well, actually, that is something I remember very much about Esperia. The stories of these wonderful and strange and products that, I have traveled around every region of Italy for a book that came out in 96, The Food Lover's Companion, Italy. So a lot of these areas were familiar in some of the products, but suddenly you created a way to bring these to, I guess it would have been first your friends, an Italian audience, and eventually a global audience.
Yes, and this is where I terminated the experience with Esperia in 2002, when we were already selling stuff to continental Europe. We were starting to sell some to the UK and to the USA, and I'm sure it could have been a great success, but for several reasons, it is not worthy to tell now. I decided to sell the business, and in the moment maybe where we were in the phase of completing my idea, because my idea was that thanks to the internet I can be able to literally ship to your house a piece of this region, of this village, through the food, through the wine they produce. And the other step to complete the experience was the idea to bring you together with a bunch of friends to and visit the region, the village, the producer, and together with the nature and the art and everything we have practically everywhere, and to discover, to experience the way they are connected. This is my firm belief. I think that also food and wine, when they are authentic, are one of the expressions of the culture and the spirit of the local area, as the art has been and still is in several areas in Italy, but everywhere, if you want, I think.
Yes, yes, very much that link of food as an integral element of the culture. But it was quite a magical time for your customers, for people like me, because I remember, we have much more availability of quality Italian products today than we did 25 years ago. But I remember that I could, for example, go onto your website and order mozzarella di bufala on a Sunday evening. On the Monday, I knew that the buffalo milk was being transformed by hand, the mozzare, the torn mozzarella made by hand on the Monday. By Monday night, it had probably been sent to you in Loreto to be dispatched by whatever means, so that by Wednesday morning, I was able to have that for lunch. And it was just incredible because it was as fresh a mozzarella as you would get if you were in Campania. And it was quite a miracle to me, and one of the great excitements of e-commerce.
This is probably another part of me continuously looking for new challenges, if you want, very very simple challenges, because it's all about simple things like mozzarella or wine or whatever. But yes, at the time it was practically impossible to get a proper mozzarella, real and authentic mozzarella di bufala, let's say in London, because nobody was selling directly to private people. It was simply not possible. So we started to think a way on how to do that. And it was quite complicated because many of the logistics part of the business. And I realize now that it's very difficult to understand what the situation was. But the situation was the one where the DHL or UPS, their business was to transfer documents from one office to another. They were completely out of the idea of delivering a pack of 10 kilos to a private house to private people. So we started to discuss with them and to look for a cooperation and to look for solutions about how to grant the proper temperature while transferring the package, and how to connect the logistics with the producer. And the producers of authentic food are often very small business and family business, and so you have to cooperate with them to make it possible and so on. But to me, I mean, I'm very proud of what we have been able to do, and I was very happy for my customers, of course, appreciating this experience. But to me, the real enjoyment was in setting up the process. To be honest, to do it, it was my real satisfaction.
Wow, that's so interesting. I'm also thinking that, in Italy itself, I know probably your biggest market was to Italians. Now, Italians are notoriously parochial, the famous campanilismo. Italians unwilling to try versions of dishes from neighboring towns, let alone regions. In a way, do you think that what you did helped Italians to discover their own country a bit more?
Yes, this is a good point, and because it's true. We let's say, of course, it's different, and it was already different from the past. It was no more about fighting, in actually fighting each other, because we had in the history a phase where every single village, maybe at 10 kilometers from the other one, was in war between them. But nowadays it is kind of a joke, if you want, when is at its best expression. But the you can compare that to the mood of supporters of a football team against another one, and you can apply approximately the same when you speak about this pecorino cheese of Monte Sibillini compared to the pecorino cheese of, let's say, Gran Sasso in Abruzzo. It's always a pecorino cheese. They are both wonderful, and there is no more than maybe 50 kilometers of distance from the producers, but they are two completely different expressions of the cheese culture, and you can perceive it when you taste it. And every single pecorino cheese has a group of supporters. But what I think I realized in a certain way, the fact that people in Italy were already mixed in different regions, because we had in the 60s and 70s of the last century a great phenomenon of internal migrations, mainly from south to north. And I start to leverage also on the nostalgic part of, I do not know, Sicilian people living in Turin because working at the Fiat industry, or many others, or the Le Marche people living in Milan or whatever. So I remember that our communication was often about saying, if you want a piece of Sicily with you, we can ship it to you through this product, or the tuna fish we select in Favignana, and so on.
Well, that's really, really interesting that how you were reaching out through the stories to connect people with their homes, to connect people's hearts through their stomach.
Yeah, this is basically so.
Okay, and having been one of the pioneers of e-commerce, because e-commerce was very, very new when you began this business. Today, when you're looking at how it's almost replaced traditional shops in the center of towns and cities, have you been amazed at how the things have developed, or do you think that this is the natural way things will go? And we've lost something as well, haven't we?
Well, so the cost of seeming not so humble as I should be, but I would say no, I'm not surprised. And I still remember in the Esperia days, we were in the middle of the web craze, and maybe you know this very smart guy founding Tiscali. Tiscali was a new generation provider, launching a big business and quoted at the Milan Stock Exchange and everything. And in Italy, we have the main financial newspaper, which is Il Sole 24 Ore. And they published in a Sunday a double page asking to this guy and to me separately the same question. And the same question was, do you think that in the internet could be possible in the future to sell real stuff like objects and food or furniture or whatever? Or do you think the internet is to sell just digital goods like Tiscali was doing? And I was selling real stuff, of course, with Asperia. And this guy was saying that no, forget it. The internet is not the solution to sell actively and in a sustainable manner real goods and objects and so on, because the future is just about digital services and everything. I was saying that to me, the trend could be the one where digital goods would become more and more difficult to sell in the internet because of the price. They tend to be for free. While the real stuff has a space because you can sell to people you can reach thanks to the internet willing this kind of product and so on. And well, all in all, I think that reality is that nowadays everyone take it for granted that you can sell whatever you want through the internet. This is not necessarily and always a good thing. I agree with you on that. And what I see now as a challenge is to try to connect the online experience with the offline experience, if you can name it this way.
Finally, Antonio, let's turn now to your latest venture because, in a sense, having created a global e commerce business with Asperia, you're returning to being from selling wonderful artisan products and produce. You are now a producer yourself through your latest venture. Tell us about the Smoking Tiger.
Well, very good. And so let's say this way. I will reveal something that you do not know about Asperia, Mark, even if you know everything about Asperia, maybe more than me in several aspects. And the fact is, my initial idea was to launch Asperia with the claim espresso experience because my first idea was all about coffee. Being so passionate as I am about food and wine and everything, coffee is into my veins. Well, my father was producing until the 80s, was producing a particular local liquor made from coffee, and I used to stay there smelling and sniffing coffee all the day when I was maybe 10 years old or so. And I started to study the story of coffee, the story of the economy of coffee, and everything. And it's really fascinating. Then, reflecting exactly on the fact that e commerce is transforming the way we buy things and looking for a new challenge in how to make it better the experience of buy things apart from the supermarket approach you have with Amazon and the kind. I started to think that I was willing to challenge the Italian coffee culture. Coffee is a very interesting product in the fact that the production of the raw materials is in tropical regions, while the transformation and the roasting part is in the destination countries. So it means that you are forced to make a choice in terms also of ethics and sourcing the coffee in a certain way or another way. And the other part is that, yes, you can source the best coffee you can in the best way you can, but you have to transform it in a certain way with a certain style. And the Italian coffee culture is, with reason, very proud of the espresso discovery at the end of the 19th century. It was invented in Italy and now spreading everywhere all over the world. But the fact is that, as it happens, sometimes we tend to stay and stop with what we have already achieved. And I think that the coffee culture is growing since probably 20 or 30 years, more abroad than in Italy. So I decided to launch this new venture apart from my main business. Since the selling of Esperia, my main business is a small consultancy firm for food and wine industries, and I'm still involved in that. But luckily enough, I have a bunch of friends, partners of this company doing a great job, and I have also my son doing a good job with it. So I decided to, in my 60s, I'm now almost 62 years old. I decided it was time enough to try to become a roaster. And I made my choices. I started in when the COVID was already there, so it's not an excuse for me, and I have to do the best I can in a very difficult situation. But I'm quite happy because I sold the first bag of roasted coffee with our brand, the Smoking Tiger, in November 2020. And so it's a little bit more than 1 year, but we are doing quite good, both online and offline, both directly to private people and through selected restaurants and coffee shops and so on. For the moment, merely in Italy. I think there is a huge potential to expand operations, at least in Europe, and we are already selling coffee to Austria and Germany. I would like to sell coffee in a place where the coffee culture is something boiling like London and the UK, but unfortunately, the Brexit is not of help in this respect. But anyway, I will find a way to be there sooner or later, and I hope very soon.
Well, that's a really interesting development, and I know that everything that drives you is done through passion, and it's very interesting to hear this passion developing from when you were a young boy, either cooking beside your mother or selling that wonderful coffee, and finding a way to create a sense of community through this shared interest. Antonio, it's been a real pleasure meeting up again this morning and finding a little bit more about your story. I look forward even more to sharing a glass of wine with you or a coffee when I'm next in Le Marche.
Or both. I hope so.
Or both. Yes, definitely. Thank you very much for being our guest.
Okay, it has been a real pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. And you are doing a very, very, very good job.
Thank you. A presto.
Ciao.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe right here or wherever you get your pods. Likewise, you can visit us at ItalianWinePodcast.com. Until next time, chin chin.
Hi guys, guys. I'm Joy Livingston, and I am the producer of the Italian Wine Podcast. Thank you for listening. We are the only wine podcast that has been doing a daily show since the pandemic began. This is a labor of love, and we are committed to bringing you free content every day. Of course, this takes time and effort, not to mention the cost of equipment, production, and editing. We would be grateful for your donations, suggestions, requests, and ideas. For more information on how to get in touch, go to ItalianWinePodcast.com.